Inner power is not something you discover suddenly. It doesn't arrive on a good day or after a big achievement. Most people meet their inner power only after life has taken something from them, after confidence is shaken, after certainty disappears, after the outer world stops responding the way it used to. There was a time when this person believed strength came from doing more, achieving faster, proving value constantly. He thought power meant control over money, over outcomes, over people, over time. And for a while, that belief worked. Things moved, progress happened, life looked fine from the outside. But slowly, something changed. Effort started feeling heavier, motivation stopped lasting. Even when things went right, peace didn't stay. Success became loud but empty. Failure became quiet but exhausting. And one day, without drama, without warning, he realized something important was missing. Himself. Not physically, internally. He noticed how easily his mood was controlled by situations, how a small failure could ruin an entire day, how approval felt necessary to feel okay, how silence felt uncomfortable, how being alone with his thoughts felt draining instead of grounding. That's when he understood something no one had ever explained clearly. If your strength depends on external conditions, it isn't strength, it's dependence. Inner power begins where dependence ends. But that realization doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels uncomfortable, because when you stop blaming circumstances, you are left with responsibility, and responsibility is heavy until you grow into it. So he stopped trying to fix everything at once. He didn't chase confidence. He didn't force positivity. He didn't try to feel powerful. Instead, he started observing. He watched how his reactions controlled his energy, how overthinking stole momentum, how unnecessary battles drained him, how trying to be understood weakened him, how constantly explaining himself kept him small. Inner power, he realized, is mostly about what you stop doing. You stop reacting instantly. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop needing validation to continue. At first, this felt strange. Silence felt like weakness. Slowing down felt like falling behind. Not reacting felt like losing control. But over time, something shifted. He noticed that when he paused instead of reacting, situations lost their grip on him. When he didn't chase reassurance, confidence slowly stabilized. When he focused on what he could control, his actions, his effort, his discipline, anxiety had less space to grow. Inner power didn't feel loud. It felt steady. It showed up in moments where he stayed calm instead of defensive, where he continued working without immediate results, where he trusted his process even when nothing around him changed yet. This was new. He wasn't trying to dominate life anymore. He was learning to stand firm inside it. And that's when he noticed something else. Life responds differently to people who are internally stable. Not immediately, not dramatically, but subtly. People listened more. Decisions became clearer. Fear lost urgency. Not because the world changed, but because his relationship with it did. Inner power doesn't remove problems. It changes your posture toward them. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he started asking, "What does this require from me?" Instead of rushing for answers, he allowed patience. Instead of forcing outcomes, he focused on consistency. Slowly, discipline stopped feeling forced. Boundaries stopped feeling rude. Saying no stopped feeling guilty. Rest stopped feeling lazy. Silence stopped feeling empty. Inner power was forming, not as confidence, but as self-trust. And self-trust changes everything. When you trust yourself, you don't panic when things slow down. You don't collapse when plans fail. You don't abandon yourself when motivation disappears. You stay. You adjust. You continue. That's where real power lives. Not in intensity, not in aggression, not in constant movement, but in calm persistence. And this is only the beginning. Because inner power deepens when life tests it further, when loss arrives, when loneliness appears, when progress takes longer than expected. That's where the story continues. That is usually where inner power is actually tested. When you do everything you're supposed to do, when you stay consistent, when you show patience, and still nothing seems to move. No clear reward, no visible confirmation, just effort stretching into time. Most people break there, not because they are weak, but because they misunderstand what delay means. They assume delay is denial. They assume silence means failure. They assume slow progress means they chose the wrong path. He almost thought the same. There were days when waking up felt heavier than before, not because life was harder, but because the excitement of starting something new had faded. The early motivation was gone. What remained was repetition, routine, the same work, the same discipline, the same quiet effort with no applause. This is the stage where inner power either forms or collapses. He noticed a choice hidden inside every slow day: either complain internally and leak energy, or accept the pace and conserve it; either question his worth because results were late, or strengthen his self-trust because he was still showing up. So he chose something different. He stopped checking progress emotionally. Instead of asking, "Is this working yet?" he asked, "Am I still aligned with what I chose?" That shift mattered more than it looked. Because the moment he stopped demanding quick validation, his nervous system calmed. He no longer felt chased by time. He stopped comparing invisible timelines. He focused on execution without expectation. And something interesting happened. The work became cleaner. Not faster, not easier, cleaner. There was less resistance in his mind, less drama around effort, less inner negotiation. He wasn't trying to feel powerful anymore. He was simply being present with what needed to be done. Inner power grows in presence, not in overthinking the future, not in replaying the past, in doing the next right thing, fully. As weeks passed, his relationship with discomfort changed. Earlier, discomfort felt like a warning sign. Now it felt like a signal of growth. He understood that discomfort didn't mean something was wrong. It meant something was expanding. This realization didn't make pain disappear, but it made it meaningful. And meaning changes how much weight you can carry. He also noticed how silence began to feel different. Earlier, silence made his thoughts louder. Now, silence became space. Space to observe, space to breathe, space to reset. The need to constantly distract himself slowly faded. That's when inner power became visible to him for the first time. Not as confidence, not as dominance, but as steadiness. When unexpected problems appeared, he didn't collapse. When plans failed, he didn't spiral. When people misunderstood him, he didn't rush to explain. He learned that inner power doesn't react to every noise. It chooses its battles carefully. This is where maturity enters. Inner power is closely tied to restraint, the ability to pause before responding, the ability to let things unfold without forcing control, the ability to remain grounded even when outcomes are uncertain. As time went on, he noticed something else that surprised him. His goals started changing, not in direction, but in quality. Earlier, his goals were about proving something. Now they were about building something. Earlier, success meant being seen. Now success meant being stable. Earlier, failure felt personal. Now it felt informational. Inner power refined his ambition. It removed desperation. And desperation is what drains people the fastest. By the time results finally started appearing, they didn't feel overwhelming. They felt natural, almost expected, because the real transformation had already happened internally. The outer change was just a reflection. This is the part people rarely talk about. When inner power develops fully, you stop chasing dramatic moments. You stop craving breakthroughs. You stop needing life to feel intense. You become comfortable with continuity. And continuity is rare. Most people live in bursts. Short efforts, short hope, short discipline. Inner power lives in long stretches of calm effort without excitement. That's why it lasts. And that's why when something truly difficult arrives, real loss, real uncertainty, real loneliness, people with inner power bend but do not break. Because they are not powered by emotion. They are powered by alignment. And alignment does not disappear when things get hard. It deepens, not in a way that is visible to others, but in a way that becomes undeniable to the person living it. Inner power deepens when life removes the last layer of comfort, when something meaningful is taken away, and you are left alone with yourself without distraction. This is usually the part no one prepares you for. There comes a phase where discipline is no longer enough, where consistency alone doesn't answer the questions that start surfacing. Questions about meaning, about direction, about whether all this effort actually matters. The external structure may still be standing, but internally, everything feels quieter, heavier, and more serious. He entered that phase slowly. There was no single dramatic loss, no sudden collapse, just a gradual thinning of certainty. Things that once motivated him stopped working. Goals that once felt exciting now felt neutral. Even progress didn't bring the satisfaction it used to. At first, this scared him. He thought something was wrong. He thought he was losing drive. He thought maybe he had reached the limit. But what he was actually experiencing was depth. Inner power deepens when you stop needing constant stimulation to keep moving, when the noise fades, and what remains is a simple willingness to continue without guarantees. This is where many people mistake maturity for emptiness and turn back. He didn't. He allowed the quiet to stay. In that quiet, he started noticing things he had ignored before, the way he rushed through moments instead of experiencing them, the way he attached his worth to outcomes, the way he tried to stay busy to avoid stillness. Stillness revealed truth, not comforting truth, honest truth. He saw where his effort was coming from fear instead of intention. He saw where ambition was mixed with insecurity. He saw where discipline was still being used to escape discomfort rather than face it. This realization didn't weaken him. It grounded him. Because inner power is not built by avoiding weakness. It is built by understanding it clearly and not letting it control you. He began simplifying his life, not dramatically, just intentionally. Fewer commitments, clearer priorities, more space between thoughts, more space between reactions. He learned to sit with discomfort without labeling it as a problem. Sadness no longer meant something was wrong. Uncertainty no longer meant he was lost. Silence no longer meant emptiness. They became signals, not threats. This is where inner power changes form. Earlier, it was about control and consistency. Now, it became about acceptance and presence. He stopped trying to dominate his emotions and started listening to them. He stopped fighting uncertainty and started walking with it. He stopped asking life to make sense immediately. And in doing so, he became harder to shake. Life could surprise him, but it could no longer destabilize him completely. People could disappoint him, but they could no longer define him. Outcomes could change, but his center stayed steady. This is the deepest form of power most people never reach, because it requires letting go of the illusion that control creates safety. Safety comes from self-trust, from knowing that no matter what happens, you will respond with clarity rather than panic, with patience rather than collapse. Inner power deepens when you no longer fear the unknown, not because you understand it, but because you trust yourself inside it. And when you reach this stage, something remarkable happens. You stop trying to be strong. You simply are. Your presence becomes calm. Your decisions become fewer but clearer. Your effort becomes efficient rather than exhausting. You don't rush growth anymore. You allow it. And this is why inner power, once deepened, is not flashy. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't seek recognition. It doesn't depend on outcomes. It just stays. And when life tests you again, because it always does, it doesn't have to rebuild. It holds. That is what inner power truly is. Not something you show. Something you stand on.